now also a prisoner for Christ Jesus, urge you on behalf of my child Onesimus, whose father I have become in my imprisonment. I am sending him, that is, my own heart, back to you. I should have liked to retain him for myself, so that he might serve me on your behalf in my imprisonment for the gospel, but I did not want to do anything without your consent, so that the good you do might not be forced, but voluntary. Perhaps this is why he was away from you for a while, that you might have him back forever. No longer a slave, but more than a slave, a brother, beloved especially to me, but even more so to you, as a man and in the Lord. So, if you regard me as a partner, welcome him as you would me. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. The Lord be with you.
With your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there's enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build, but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he's still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I was just beginning to end a 40-minute phone conversation with one of our recent alums who graduated just last May. He's out there now in the world for the first time. And he asked, "What are you working on these days?" And I started to answer in terms of the CSC. We're doing this and that, and the freshmen are really cool. And then he repeated his question, "But what are you working on? What are you working on right now in your personal life to become a better person, to be better at love?" We ended the conversation as it was getting on to 1 a.m. by then by asking each other one last question. What is the first thing you will put on your calendar to work on tomorrow morning when you get up that might even be the hardest thing to do to further your dream for your business and your own personal relationships. Before you go to bed tonight, what's the one thing you would write down that you want to do first thing in the morning to further your business and your personal relationships? You guys plan everything, sometimes down to the minute it seems. And there are apps galore now that help us do just that. Jesus is a big fan of planning, not what might qualify as OCD planning, where we go crazy if we can't check something off in a timely way or if plans change. But nevertheless, Jesus understands the things that are worth doing or worth planning to do. The things that are worth doing are worth planning to do. Listen to the two stories he tells, probably right out of the headlines of the Jerusalem Gazette of his day. If there's anyone here planning to build a new house who doesn't first sit down and figure the cost so you'll know if you can complete it, if you only get the foundation laid and then you run out of money, you're going to look pretty stupid. Everyone passing by is going to poke fun at you. He started something he couldn't finish. How many relationships in our lives could somebody say that about us? He started something, she started something she couldn't finish. Or, he went on to tell another image. Can you imagine a king going into battle against another king without first deciding whether it's possible with his 10,000 troops to face 20,000 troops of the other? And if he decides he can't, won't he send an emissary then to work out a truce? The artist Picasso wrote, "Our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan in which we most fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success but a plan." The backbone of success in our work and in our relationships is good planning. It falls to us to plan our work every day and to work our plan every day. We all witnessed this past week, the last 2 weeks actually, that planning can save lives. Hurricane Dorian reminded us in no uncertain terms that plans work even in the uncertain path of a hurricane. You who are from the Southeast know this better than most of us right now, what it's like to have to be prepared. For these last 2 weeks, governments have been trying to help people be prepared for a monster storm. They knew that the more prepared they would be, the more likely they would be to survive. To survive. People were running from the water and hiding from the wind. I don't know if you've noticed this over the years of your own life, but growing, personal growing, does not happen accidentally. It does not just happen. It takes some planning. Something in life helps us realize that our brand of crazy is keeping life from showing up for us. And then do something about it now. There are things about us, about all of us without exception. There are things about us, attitudes we carry, behaviors, repetitive behaviors, patterns, emotions, the way we do emotions in our lives, that end up hurting the people we want to hurt the least, resulting in our lives being lonelier and full of unnecessary suffering. What are you working on? What do you want to be working on this week in your life to become more holy and happy and healthy as a human being in relationships? I went on a workshop this past summer, and we were talking about many things, and one of the things the person who was our mentor, our teacher in the course, said something really interesting to me that I've tried to put into practice. She said, when you work on changing something, take 48-hour increments. Work on it with total focus for 48 hours. And what I learned was, after I'm done with those 48 hours, oftentimes imperfectly done, my awareness was heightened like never before about that particular issues, and even some of the old patterns started to break open a bit for me. And so as a consequence of that course, I put myself on a 48-hour complaining fast. And I got to tell you, it did just that for me. My awareness of my complaining and the complaining of people around me has never been higher. And I would say I do it so much less now because of that. My grip has loosened on that. Drilling down on something for 48 hours. That can be the plan. Some of the things I've had to drill down on over the years, and others I know who've had to drill down on in their life, I want to throw out quickly for you for your consideration. They're different for all of us. Most all of these, with a few exceptions, could be mine. But maybe they could surface something for you that could be your 48-hour fast or focused attention. For 48 hours, why not work on being less dependent on somebody or something? When Jesus said, hate your father and mother and hate your possessions, he didn't mean that literally. He's saying, hold more lightly to them. You're too dependent on that person. You're over-dependent, and we used to call it codependent on that woman or man in your life, so much so you don't think you can live without him. And that's a lie. So maybe for 48 hours, drill down on the fact to be more healthily dependent and independent instead of over-dependent or independent. Be clear about what I want. How many times, I could say this one to myself, Gary Brown, be clear about what I want. Because there's so many times I don't know what I want, and I don't communicate it clearly if I do. And then we end up getting hurt, assuming people should guess what we need. For 48 hours, don't keep interrupting other people while they're talking. That's another one I need to be working on. This could take the rest of my life. Don't keep interrupting people when they're talking or throwing myself in or telling about my kids and what they went through, just like you did, and then all of a sudden switch everything around. For 48 hours, be kind when you're anxious. It's so easy when we're harried and hurried, and we get all anxious, and then we bark. How about overcoming fear of rejection? How about learning how to ask good questions instead of just expecting other people to ask you good questions? How about not dwelling on your mistakes? How about letting go of stupid dreams? How about